do it again, and hopefully the two parties can agree to that. But you're really calling something out and making it a huge issue.
Well, yeah, but the problem is, how do you know it's not a huge issue?
I agree.
I mean, do you know enough about structural engineering to know if a crack in the ceiling isn't a big issue? That's the problem, and your buyer doesn't know either. And if it's a non-issue, and the buyer closes the deal, and you never hear from him again, then it's water under the bridge. If you close the deal and the appropriate disclosures aren't made, and it does turn out to be a structural issue, you're going to have 12 to 18 months of unenjoyable time ahead of you, along with the payment of a fairly large deductible. So I don't know. That's why that's why I'm telling you to do what I'm telling you to do. Yeah, all the way in the back. Oh, I'm sorry, guy all the way in the back.
Is there any issue with the fact that you and the other agent are dealing outside of your people you're representing to fill this form out?
I'm not sure I understand what you're saying.
If I'm listing it and he sells in the same office, and now we're having conversations about our AVIDs outside of representing our own clients, is there any legal issue with that?
Yes.
We're sort of like colluding together to fill these forms out.
Well, if you're colluding together to do something bad, then that's not good. If you're colluding to do something good, I don't know that there's any problem with that.
Opposing sides in the action.
No, but we're dual agents. We're representing.
Yeah, but you're not negotiating the deal when you're filling out a disclosure form.
Unless you're making property value go down by finding something, then you're hurting the seller.
Well, no, you're not hurting the seller if you're trying to ferret out information and give it to the buyer. I would agree with you that if you got together before the contract was signed and you said, look, I happen to know that my seller's in a really bad financial situation. I shouldn't be telling you this, but I know that they'll take $100,000 less than the property. Yeah, you've colluded to the detriment of your seller. Conversely, if you go to your other side and say, I happen to know that my buyer just came into a ton of money and they really want this house, so stick to your guns and we'll both get a higher commission. Yeah, you definitely colluded. If you collude over filling out the AVID to the point where the buyer gets a more complete disclosure form and gets a better idea of what the possible outcomes of these disclosures are and how to best address them, I don't think you're going to have as big a problem with that. That's just my opinion.
To the detriment of the seller, then does the seller have any?
Can I just say something?
Sure.
My point really was, yeah, if it was to the detriment of the seller, but what he's really saying is if you're pointing it out and you're saying get a professional there, and the professional determines that there is a problem, then you've done what you should be doing. If the professional decides there isn't a problem, you're not hurting the seller. Right?
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, so that's what I'm saying.
Okay. Hang on one second, because the lady next to the guy in the back had her hand up for a while too, so go ahead.
So if you take the listing and you fill out your AVID, and a month later the seller decides to rectify things with licensed contractors, does the listing agent state that it's been rectified?
Well, yeah, that's another one of the age-old questions is when is a problem considered fixed? Because there's a case out there called Pagano that says once a problem's fixed, it's not a problem. You don't have to disclose it. But when a problem is when a problem has existed up to the time of the listing, and then somebody comes in and fixes it, how do you know it's been fixed correctly, or how do you know the fix is going to hold? We've seen properties in San Diego in the hilly regions where a geotechnical engineer is called in, they build a whole new foundation and the thing falls into the dirt 3 weeks later because it wasn't done right. So how do you know that something has been fixed? Well, you don't. So what you disclose is you don't disclose that something's been fixed. You disclose that the seller addressed it with a contractor, put the buyer in contact with the contractor, and say, if you want to see what they did and you want to talk to the contractor about what they did to fix this, here's the guy's contact information.
That's the SBQ as well, right?
Correct. Okay. Yes.
I just want to. It's kind
Lori says there's a crack, I'm taking the listing, the seller paints over there. Can on his AVID say, seller states fixed and painted crack? See seller's property, the questionnaire.
Just say
Can you refer to that?
Yeah, you can refer back, and you can obviously pass on things that the seller has told you. But my caution for you, if you were going to say seller fixed the crack, would be yes, exactly. That's how you want to bring yourself back within the protection of these case law things. Is to say, seller stage crack was fixed. Agents have not verified this. Buyer encouraged to investigate further if this is an issue for the buyer. Okay, right in back of that lady.
Is it best to wait for the home inspection before you fill out your AVID and then include those call-outs from the home inspection on the AVID?
No, you don't. The law doesn't require you to make disclosures that other people have already made. You don't have to go back and refill out the AVID or do anything to include stuff that is called out on a home inspection. The only thing you're supposed to do is you're supposed to just do your visual inspection, find the things that you noticed, because you don't want to be saying you noticed something that you in fact didn't notice because you're not a home inspector. So no, you don't have to do that. You don't have to wait and call out things that are called out on the home inspection. You don't have to author the TDS or the AVID or the SPQ or anything like that after the home inspection. I'll get to you in just a second because you've had your hand up for a bit.
So for the dual agency, it's not yet you take the listing and then you fill out your AVID, then somebody in the office sells the property and you're feeling uncomfortable that they're not disclosing or doing their job. So you would just give an addendum to try and pique the buyer's interest more on any of the issues that you think that they're not getting.
Look harder in the closet.
They're not told.
No.
Because now you have a dual agency, so you actually are responsible for that buyer as well.
Right. So in your hypothetical situation, you've received the AVID from the agent, the other agent, the agents that's got the relationship with the buyer. You're not comfortable with it. Do you go to the other side and say, you know what, I think we need to work on your AVID a little bit, or what? I mean,
or do you send out an addendum?
Yeah, you can do that. You can send out an addendum saying, these are our issues that were noted on the form, and here's a follow-up to them, and here's what we recommend you do.
Or you could contact the manager, and the manager could contact the agent and ask for the form to be more complete.
Oh, another fantastic idea. All right, good. You had your hand. I'm sorry. Hang on 1 second.
Torches. He said manager. That would be Andy.
Okay, that would be Andy. All right. Well, the suggestion that Jim threw out there was, if that were to happen, if as a listing agent now turned dual agent, you were not satisfied with what your counterpart were doing on the AVID, that might be a good time to get management involved. Call Andy, call Jim, call Jack, one of these gentlemen. Okay, finally you.
I was going to say, doing an AVID for a property that's a tear down or a major fixer, it sounds frightening.
Yes, it does.
You speak up, please. Repeat the question.
The question is, well, it was more of a statement, which is doing an AVID for a property that's a tear down can be frightening. And I guess the question was, if there's such a large volume of information, what do you do with it? If it doesn't fit on the form, do you attach addendums? Yeah, anytime you've got so much information that it doesn't fit in the actual form, there's quite a few car addendums and blank forms and all that you can use. But I guess the real question is, if you're selling a property to a developer, he's just going to scrape the thing.
But not necessarily, or somebody's going to build their own.
Okay, well, or somebody's going to build their own home.
Decide to fix it up.
Yeah. I would still make the disclosures, and the reason is because not because their plans might change and they may decide I'm going to go ahead and just live in this, but there may be things that are brought up through the disclosures that, if they were addressed, might have